Welcome to this episode of our program, Daily Debate. As usual, we will be discussing an important topic. Today we'll be speaking about Egypt's commitment towards the African states and the African continent. It has always announced its commitment to pursue all its efforts in promoting joint cooperation with African states, as well as supporting the efforts to achieve the aspiration of all Africans. Of course, it was all shown in the efforts made by the Egyptian leadership and the Egyptian diplomacy as well. We'll also speak about the latest developments regarding the disputed Renaissance Dam, the Ethiopian dam, and though Egypt's efforts in this regard show the persistence of differences in major issues between parties concerned, Egypt has always affirmed the necessity of reaching a binding legal agreement that would go in the interest of all parties. We'll be speaking about that in our episode and more. Before we delve into our discussion, let's first have a quick look on the top stories of the day. And President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi directed to establish the main goal of the social welfare institutions of children and youth, to develop them in a way that helps in building up a good personality. This came during the President's meeting with Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli and a number of concerned ministers. Presidential spokesman Ambassador Bassam Radi said that the meeting tackled the activities of social welfare institutions, the nursery system, as well as the charitable activity of Long Live Egypt Fund. The head of state also directed to accelerate the issuance of temporary licenses for the nurseries which have not adjusted their administrative status yet. And turning to our second top story of the day, and indeed this is a top story. The Interior Ministry announced on Monday killing 3 terrorists in an exchange of fire with security forces in North Sinai. In a statement, the Interior Ministry said that the terrorists were involved in the killing of Nabil Habashi and were plotting for a number of attacks against Coptic citizens, their properties and worship places, as well as military forces and police targets. The statement said that the terrorists were killed in an exchange of fire with the forces that carried out the crackdown on their hideouts. It added that 3 weapons, explosive belts, hand grenade and ammunition were found with the terrorists. The statement identified 2 of the killed elements as Mohammed Ziada Salim, known as Ammar, and Yusuf Ibrahim Salim, known as Abu Muhammad. Ammar is one of the most dangerous terrorist elements in North Sinai, while Abu Muhammad was involved in a number of terrorist attacks. The 2 provided logistical support to terrorists in North Sinai. The statement said that other terrorist elements involved in the brutal killing of Habashi have been identified and search operations are underway to arrest them. And now we move on to our topic of tonight. And before we start with our discussion, let's first have a quick look on the report of our first report. And Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry embarks on African tour to brief states on GERD updates. Let's watch.
Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry headed on Sunday evening to the Kenyan capital, Nairobi, to start an African tour and brief leaders of African states on recent updates on the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam issue. The Foreign Ministry spokesman Ahmed Hafiz said in a statement that the Egyptian top diplomat's tour includes Comoros, South Africa, Senegal and Tunisia. Shoukry will also visit the Democratic Republic of Congo, the current chair of the African Union. Shoukry is carrying messages from President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi to the leaders of these countries on GERD updates and the Egyptian stance in this regard. The ministry's spokesman Ahmed Hafiz stated that this tour stems from Egyptian keenness to brief countries of the African continent on the reality of the negotiation situation in terms of the Renaissance Dam issue. Hafiz added that Egypt is keen on achieving a legally binding agreement on the filling and operation of the dam in a manner that takes the interests of the three countries into account prior to the second filling phase and any unilateral actions. Hafez emphasized the Egyptian position that calls for launching a serious and effective negotiation that would result in the desired agreement. It's worth mentioning that Egypt and Sudan earlier in April sent letters to the UN Security Council calling for international engagement in the talks to help the Egyptian-Sudanese endeavor to reach a binding deal on the Gerd.